there's a lot of uncertainty until the Chancellor speaks on Wednesday. The Wednesday?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of uncertainty in the market because normally what they would do is they would drip feed little bits of information in.
Yeah, you're not getting that.
So when the Chancellor announced it, nobody goes, I didn't know that. But they've been very tight-lipped about what it is going to be. And I think that in a lot of businesses, if you're working with contractors or whatever you are, a lot of people are uneasy. They're nervous. The banks are nervous.
National insurance, I've heard, is going up.
Yeah, so national insurance, only employers, national insurance is going up.
Yeah.
So your
Awesome,
employers are going to pay a little bit more money. Welcome to it.
You know what? Is there any reason for any company wanting to stay in Britain?
Oof.
You know, give me
That's
the pros. We can't. It'll be ages, but
It's a loaded question,
level out the pros and cons for having a business in the United Kingdom.
So why would I want to be here if there's so much red tape, if it's just easier for me to open something up in America, for lack of a better word, or United Arab Emirates, or a country where it's actually conducive for businesses to be in there? So why would I stay here? That labor costs. So you know that a lot of the large organizations, going back 15, 20 years, they moved a lot of their production facilities to China, because labor was really, really inexpensive. And now labor is really expensive. And if you're producing, labor is an expensive part of your production cost. So all of a sudden, when you have that, you have to push your prices up to your customers. And if I'm a customer and I'm selling a product, I'm going to start looking at elsewhere. I'm going to look at other markets. I'm going to look at China, because Chinese quality has come. I don't know if you've seen their cars. You can buy a Mercedes, but it's not called a Mercedes. Right. It's called the ZPQ 5,900,000. And if you look at some of those things, and I've recently been in a production facility where they manufacture Chinese cars. And it's unbelievable to see the quality. I promise you, it's unbelievable to see the quality is as good as everything else you can get. Of course, you don't understand a word of Chinese on the screen, don't know what it's doing, but the quality is there.
Is that when you're like, I don't know if you're telling me left or right?
Right.
There was something America was talking about. It was actually Donald Trump, like him, love him, hate him, whatever it may be. But he was talking about taxes and tariffs. I think tariffs was the better word, the softer word for it. But he says, even using the analogy with Britain as well, for companies coming into this country and paying a tariff, sometimes it's not financially feasible for them.
Yeah, viable.
So why not make it viable and feasible? Yes, you're not one people coming in and then taking over jobs from other local companies and British companies. You want the British companies to do well first. So you should be actually helping them grow mass market. But it was interesting, Donald Trump, I think he was saying about the Chinese were going to actually build a massive factory. It was one of the biggest in the world. And he says, when I come into power, if he does come into power, this is how powerful he actually is. He's not even in power just now, but the Chinese have pulled out because they know if he gets in, he's going to increase the taxes and tariffs, so to speak.
And he'll keep them out. So it's that import tariff when you bring things into a country. So he's trying to. I think his first year or his first term's promise was to make America great again. And America, if you look at that Midwest section where his power base is, that's a lot of manufacturing. Businesses, steel mills, that type of thing, which normally drives the economy. Like war, whether you like it or not, war is good for economies because things get built, things need to be shipped, things need logistics are good. But if I would not say underestimate the power of China, the Chinese are very, very good at looking long term. They don't look 2, 3, 4 years. Yeah. They look 20, 30, 40 years.
Yep. And they're actually interested in their generation.
Yeah. So
next generation.
So I would say that if I'm a business and I'm now starting up in Britain, okay, and all of a sudden all these cost pressures are on me, what could I do? Because the very first thing that's going to give is your cash flow, without a doubt. Mm-hmm. Cash flow is going to be king.
Well, that's a good topic to talk about. Cash flow.
And there is a pinch happening just now. I've noticed there's a lot of restrictions on a lot of the work that was coming in before is now slowing down. Mm-hmm. Holidays have had an effect on all that. All of these things that you don't have any real control over can affect your cash flow.
So the interesting thing about it is when you look at companies that go insolvent, and there was one here, there was a construction company recently.
There was a big one, IDS, was a big supplier for all laptops, laminates. They've been around for a very long time. They've went into receivership.
Hutchinson Construction, does that ring a bell? Any of you? I don't know if the name is correct. My apologies if it's not.
There's other one. Was it not the ferry company as well? Was going into problems, and the construction, the one that was on. I should actually know them because I was on the Glasgow School of Art, and they were the head one.
Look, are you talking about Calmac ferry?
It was Calmac. Was there no problem with Calmac?
That's just the delay in the ferries and servicing and all kinds of things that happens. But if you look at construction businesses, and let's just talk a little bit about construction businesses, you're right, there's a pinch. So what happens is when you go insolvent, it doesn't just happen. You don't just wake up Monday morning and go, I don't have enough wages to pay. That's something that happens over time. It's because you're not managing your cash flow. And what happens there is you've spent a lot of money, you've invested a lot of money in either materials or labor, and that money has to come back at some point in time. So your client maybe experiences a hiccup. They're not able to pay you. What do you do then? Do you go to the bank to get a little loan for your business, and the bank then asks you for your whole pedigree, a kidney, and maybe the right to your firstborn, depending on where they are, or they want security over your house.
Take it.
Want security over your house. What do you do? And
I think it's a really good question, because I would probably say 80% of people don't actually manage their cash flow well. You just think you're on to a good one, and then it's not until the crap hits the fan, you're like, oh no, what do I do? And it's not, I wouldn't say it's never too late. You can adapt, you can overcome, you can find a way through stuff. But that's where the pain comes, because these things, they're consistent.
Yeah.
They do happen from time to time, unless you're the top few percent that have just got massive contracts, government contracts, and you're A for away. But you do have to understand, reset, realign, and you have to figure out what your expenditure is, and you have to start trimming. And you actually have to look at your own expenditure, your personal expenditure. Get that fancy car out the driveway. Stop shopping at Waitrose and start going to Lidl. And this is one of the things that I think Gary Vee talks about a lot. Stop living your life based on other people's opinions. It's nice to have nice clothes and clubber and look at the part, but if you really analyze that,
Right.
That's it, get my words out, put my teeth back in. Why do you do all of that? And I don't want to come away from cash flow. This is really, really important. You have to trim off the fat and stop fucking spending money like a dick.
Yeah, so the first thing you do is you look what Johnny's saying in a very nice roundabout way is look at your bank statement and you say, hey, I've gone to Costa 20 times this month. It's cost me a $5 every time. There's £100. I'm not going to go to Costa. It's difficult. Never easy decisions, but you need to make difficult decisions. £100 off there. Straight away.
Remember, your business is your baby.
Yeah.
You have to look after it. You have to care for it. You have to nourish it.
But you know what we do? So very often when guys face cash flow scenarios, they go into flight or fight mode. And when they're in panic, what they do is they'll go to a funding provider. And they don't look at the terms and conditions. They just see that they can get 10, 20 or 30 grand to help them through this period of time. And that 10, 20 or 30 grand, they don't look at the interest rate. They don't look at the security. They don't look at the repayment term. And it's expensive money. It is expensive money. But it's because they're desperate. And once you fall into that trap and you can't service that money, you just spiral deeper and deeper in because you don't know how to get out of it. It's not something we teach you. We don't teach you how to manage your cash flow.
It's more about being proactive than reactive, because once you get to the reactive stage, you're in it already. So before you get to that stage, it's being proactive.
Yeah, you need to know 12 months in advance at least how much money you're going to collect. Now, it sounds like a pipe dream, especially if you are dealing with a general public, but you need to have some sort of an activity level, because cash flow ties straight back to sales, and sales straight back to activity, because you can cut costs to a minimum. Okay, so so the first thing is you cut your cost base. Your cost base is now right. Okay, you're living hand to mouth. You've allowed yourself £400 for fuel a month. You stick to £400 for fuel a month. Your cost base is right. What do you do next? You need to go get sales. No sales, no business. No sales, no cash flow. But it's when you get those sales is how long does it take you to bring a sale in, and how long does it take you to get the money in. So we're talking earlier, if you're doing project work, you could ask for a deposit. That'll help you a little bit. But how do you bridge that cash flow gap when there's a time when you have to buy materials, you still have to pay labor, all of those things. And that's where people normally try and stay away from debt. People are scared of debt. Debt's actually your friend, because if you manage your debt well, when the banks look at you, they go, you know what, we can trust this guy. He's managing his debt well. He's good. He's good for the money. But you have to watch, because people, there's security required, your house. You need to be really, really sure when you go and borrow 100 grand that you're going to be able to pay back that 100, because else they're going to come fetch your house. And guys don't look at things like that.
That's all great in theory. But ultimately what lies underneath all of that is your get up and go, your drive. Most businesses, pretty much all of them, will go through some sort of cash flow issue at the start. You're running, you're excited, everything's going quite well, and then it's about growing. You sometimes need to get a wee. You might find that you just get that really good job that gives you a lot of cash flow. One or two things happens within that period. You then go and treat yourself, or you keep it in the business. My answer would be keep it in the business, because that's your first stage at excelling you. And what you're looking for is the big jobs to excel you through the process. But along the way, dumbing it down, I would do anyway, you get hit with a few blows. And it's what you do in that reaction time. Because some people don't react. You've maybe grew and you've maybe got 2 or 3 employees, 4 employees, and you're taking your eye off the ball. This is a part where you just realign, as I said before, refocus.
Reset.
And some people, when they're getting their backs against the wall, they crumble. And that happens to the best of us, but some of us actually get that deep fight and that grit. And it is a better choice of words, but I'm just going to say it, that fuck you. I'm not giving up. And that's what gets you through about gets you through. Passion and what we said in the last
passion and perseverance.
Gets you through it. But does that answer the question? No, it doesn't. But what we have said before is about look at all your costs, your expenditure, live like a tramp, to be honest with you. If you want to make a go of this is your first stumbling block or your second or third, and sometimes you have to do it on a constant basis. But then I don't think people are going to see it in 12 months' time. I don't think a lot of people can get jobs 12 months in front of themselves. Contract work, yeah.
You can predict it. I mean, you can have some kind of predictions on what's coming through.
So the aim of looking at 12 months ahead isn't necessary for you to be sure, but it is knowing in your head what you need to do to generate that money. So if we were looking at business XYZ and we say the next 12 months, this is what we want to do. Okay, what activity do we need to do to raise that money? That's the point of a cash flow. Because if you sit back and you think business is going to float you, it's not. So are you going out networking? Are you reaching out to your clients? Are you asking for referrals? What are you actually doing?
The proactive part.
That's the proactive part about it. But let's just say you've woken up one morning and you go, hell, I don't know if my business is going to survive to Christmas. What do you do?
The first thing is to not bury your head in the sand. You need to
So the first thing is you go, I have a problem. I need 20 grand worth of cash.
Yep. So there's a starting plan there.
Okay, so that's the first thing is you realize you have a problem, you need 20 grand. Okay, where do you go for 20 grand?
The biggest and quickest way is sales. You need to get work in.
What if there's a lead time? So I'm devil's advocate here. What if there's a lead time? You need 20 grand now to fill a hole, okay? But your lead time from the time you engage a client until he pays you is 30 or 60 days. What do you do then?
Well, there's conversations to be had.
With who?
With your clients. Like, during COVID, there's a nice story. I'm trying to remember the business. They had a new client, a big new client, and they had put a massive order in. And then, because we were on some Zoom calls with some CEOs and stuff, and it was all just what's happening and being very honest. And they were a bit of bother. And this brand new company that they never dealt with before, that had this order and paid them half up front to ensure that their business was safe and secure. And the relationship, obviously, from all of that has been massive for those two companies. So they obviously wanted the product, didn't want any problems with that business going under. So they paid half of the bill up front without a single thing being done yet.
So what if it's a service? What do you do if it's a service that you provide?
So why not, still on that one, look at collaborations with other people in your field. An example of that would be big project. Listen, do you need extra labour? It'd be great if you could help us out and we'll get you something at the back of it. We'll do a reduced cost, but just to keep the sales coming in. Whatever it may be, some counter deal. They're doing the job, they're buying all the material, you're handing them labour, you're going labour only, and it gives you a bit of a cash injection quite quickly. Yeah. You could do that. So look around.
So that's not adding expense to materials.
No, exactly. So you could do that. The other one is mum and dad, auntie, uncle. we're falling a wee bit harder times. Stay away from the bank as long as you can. I sometimes feel. Get a borrow of money. It might be 5, it might be 10 grand, just to keep you going. Give them something of interest that entice them to make the deal work. You know what I mean? There's different ways around it.
Excuse me.
I wouldn't say you want to start letting people go, because ultimately,
That's reactional. Yeah.
aye, you want to sit and
don't
really
want
calculate
knee-jerk.
your thoughts. It's the easiest. You think it's the smartest move. But as Ali Booth from HR Booth will say, you've got insolvency, not insolvency, but you may have that if you go down that road, because you'll have to pay the redundancy. There's a lot of things you can do before that, though. So
It's sometimes very
collaborations,
difficult to
borrow
see
money
that.
from mum and dad.
Sometimes very difficult to see that when you stuck here and you go, it's 2 months left to Christmas. I need 20 grand. My pipeline is empty. What the hell do I do? It's very, very difficult to see that. And the first thing you do is you do bury your head in the sand. So you can visit. You can visit there for a day or two, but then you need to come out.
But remember,
decide.
everything's seasonal.
Yeah, for sure.
You're coming up to Christmas, so it's busy time or it's quiet time, depending on what you've got. You've got January, February, they all call it January blues. I go, yes. January is pretty shit, even in the construction side for us.
Absolutely.
But I'm like, yes, come on then. Let's see what we can do. However, you can borrow money from that period, because you know that March, April, May, June builds up. July sometimes drops off because everyone goes on holiday again. But everything's seasonal. It only hangs around for a while, and you'll get back. So you're just looking at the small
just
areas.
like bridge over.
Aye, bridging
So
the
you
point.
bridge. So you need to bridge some money. So we
Look
can
at
go
positive. No
Yeah.
to think hallelujah and all that carry on. But you're
holding
only
hands
bridging the
and
gap.
singing Kumbaya.
Exactly. I heard you're a good singer. Give us a song, edgy edgy fall. I will always love you. Bridge a gap. It is
So-
only for a few months.
So how do we bridge the gap? We go to mum and dad.
Mum and dad, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, all these things.
So let's just say they have no money.
Right.
What do we do then?
There is overdrafts. Like, I don't have overdrafts on any of the businesses we've got, but that's an option. But it's only an option if you
If the
haven't
bank
let
is willing
things-
to give you.
Yeah, because if you've had issues with payments and you've not been paying your national insurance or whatever, there's debt occurred or whatever.
And if you haven't been paying HMRC, they're knocking on the door, all of those things.
Because these will be checks that are done for all that. And so but overdraft is an option there, and that is a good way of just giving you a bit of a bridging over that period. But it's important, I think, to know also that there is, when you make a plan, that the plan is going to get you out of it. You're not going to start taking on all this money to get you through a period to find that there's no work at the back of that period, and you're really just spiraling.
So
into
when you want to
massive debt.
so when you want to get the money, whether it's a bank, whether it's a loan, whether it is, you need to know what's going out in a month.
Yep.
You need to know how much you need to pay back. And if you add all of those things back together, you need to go, this is what I need to bring in at the top. So you need to focus on sales. What do I need to do to bring more money in? And how am I going to do that?
Yep.
And that sounds so easy. It really does sound so easy, but it's
But
not.
you only think about these things when things are not going so well.
Yeah.
And we've said this before, sales is a lifeblood to any business. Get better at sales. Start strategically measuring where they're coming from. What kind of client do you want? Because once you've been in business for, even 6 months, a year, you're starting to establish what customers you're wanting based on the fact that you don't like some of them. So go and find the ones that you like. And it's amazing when you put your mind to something and you've got a plan. It's amazing how laser focused you can actually become. And that 9 times out of 10 comes through a bit of pain, a bit of failure. So take this as a good point. As much as it's difficult, difficulty equals success. It really does. It really, really does.
I think the important thing as well is as within a plan, if you sit and make a plan and speak to people, don't be scared to speak to people, other businesses. Everybody's been through it. What did they do? Like what, just they might have a little something there that you're not doing.
Yeah, it is.
So that's important. Don't feel embarrassed to go and speak, because people in business have been through it, everybody. And look at things short term. Don't necessarily, if it's 20 grand by Christmas, but what is it this week? What do you need to get this week? And that's a starting block, and it's not such a big chunk, it's a smaller chunk.
It's maybe 5 grand.
Yeah,
It's maybe
and it's
2
maybe
grand.
more doable. And then, just start to work that way. But again, it's all being reactive. This is where all the reactiveness comes in, rather than being proactive. Because if you'd been proactive and started to push for the business earlier in the year, you might have work in there that you're not stuck in this situation. If you put money away to get a cushion there so you have got a buffer of 2, 3, 4, whatever, 6 months worth of outgoings. Then if it does 2 or 3 months of quiet, then you know you've got enough in reserve there that you don't need to worry too much about it. And then when a good time's coming in, you're starting to build it.
Even things like your rent, you can actually say to your landlord, look,
There's all these
I'm needing a wee break
conversations,
because I don't want to leave here. I've done a lot here. Can you give me a 3-month break? And I'll give you that back. You know, a couple of, when things come good again, I'll give you an extra. And it's a conversation piece.
Communication is absolutely key. You'll have all your suppliers. All your suppliers just want their money.
Aye.
So by not speaking to them and then the letters coming through the door, the phone calls, suddenly
Don't
you're on
ignore
a deck
it.
later, yeah. Whereas if you actually just speak to them, they will put a payment plan in place for you. Now you might find that they'll obviously not let you put any more on your account, but you'll be able to buy things cash over the counter still. So if you've got work coming through, this is where you're taking your deposit. Your deposit will pay for that material to allow you to continue to work. Because if you don't have that sort of stream of materials, you're stuck. You can't do work
Again,
to get paid.
you know what, it comes down to a plan, because just as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking what you're saying is that when you talk to your suppliers and they put you on stop, the first thing that goes to your mind is, how the hell am I going to buy materials? And that's where you actually do need to spend some time, half an hour in the morning saying, listen, this week I'm going to bring in so much money. You need a plan.
Yep.
Whichever way it is.
Do you know what was brilliant when we were saying that about paying suppliers? I actually loved it back in the early days where I used to go into the suppliers and actually pay them just for what I bought. There was no, you can actually, I know it doesn't work now when you've got quite a few employees, but oh God, it was brilliant because you knew what was in your account was yours. You work from your own wee personal account.
This is what you're trying to get back to is having that
grounding back to basics again.
It's back to basics. Cash flow is one of the big basics. Nobody teaches you about cash flow.
I do a job for you for £200. The material's £60. I go to the suppliers, I get it, it costs me £40. I know there's a £20 levy there. I'm like, bro, that's my profit for the material. I just sits there. Already you can actually visit, when you see it, you can feel it, you can taste it. It's all, I admit that sounds a bit corny, but it's just, you go, yes. And it's the wins that you had at the very start. You're going to go back to that because you're going to start looking at everything and you're going to get you get a wee hard on for it. That's what I like. You're like, yes, I'm right back to it. I've got everything in the palm of my hands here. Let's go and get it. Let's go and fix it. Let's go back to why we started this. Because you've distanced yourself from it. Mm-hmm. That's what I mean. You've got complacent. And it's okay. It happens. But you'll not let it happen again.
I think another thing, just to go on to suppliers, is most suppliers have got online accounts that you can go and check what you're due as you're going along. Mm-hmm. But if you start to not pay attention to that, all of a sudden there's a massive bill comes in. You've had a big job, and like you were saying earlier, you might be spending a bit more, or there's a nice machine that you can get that'll make things, and you've gone and spent that money on all that, and then the next thing all these bills are coming in for the merchants and you don't have the cash flow. So keeping an eye on all of that and knowing, and these things are actually, when they start to build up to a certain size, you're really, it's not a bad idea to just try and manage that back down to zero and just start paying for the stuff as you're going, rather than building it on the accounts, because accounts are great to have there, and they definitely is another way of managing your cash flow, because if you've not been building up stuff on your accounts, that gives you a time period where you can stick it on the account, open up an account, and spread it over a period, 30, 60 days, whatever it is you can get the terms on. But because we went through a period where the bills were just getting massive, and every month there's another massive one, and you've got another one at the back of it the following month, where we just managed that back down to zero. And that was over a space of about 3 months. We managed to get all the accounts down to zero, and we're just paying, or the guys, if they're desperately needing some, can go in and stick on an account. But they're just that small fry stuff that you just pay off. So keeping an eye on your accounts for sure is definitely
because you've also got to worry about VAT.
Yeah.
You've got to worry about PAYE, NIC, all of that type of things.
And that's the spiral that you go in. If the cash isn't there and you've not, for example, putting the VAT away every month, because you should be able to
that's
work
not your money.
No.
And it's that mindset from the start, because again, you get a big job, they're paying you all these invoices are getting paid are quite substantial amounts, but a chunk of that's VAT, and you've been always spending it. Now you don't have the VAT, and the bigger the work, the more work you get in, bigger the jobs, then the more VAT you're going to have to pay. So suddenly, if you've taken your eye off the ball, there's a massive bill dropping through your door, and the VAT man's not a man to be messed with.
No, certainly not.
They don't mess about.
So what do we want people to take from today in terms of
Like,
cash flow?
definitely, like, one of the things for sure, if you're not in the position, then you need to be proactive and start trying to build a pot, a safety net there for you. And I know it's easy to say, we've all been there and we've all tried it, and we've all managed to not get as much back in our bank as we need. But I think that is a crucial part, is making sure you've got a buffer there, and just keep as much as you can in that for as many months as you can get behind you to cover you from a period that's maybe
So
not.
that's
got
long term. But
Yeah.
short term, what do we do short term?
Short term's a
What do we do
plan.
in the first 90 days? What is a sort of our 90-day
I would
plan?
say you need to look at your outgoings are one thing. You can obviously reduce your outgoings, but it's too late at that point. That's something you should be doing as a course as you go along. You should be actively looking on a regular basis at how much you're spending and seeing where you can cut that back. But that is small fry stuff. You need to then know what you've got going out. So what are the outgoings, and break that down into proper little chunk sizes. So what do you need immediately? What's the next, when's
So
the next
what do you
one
need to
due?
pay for your supplier next? What's your next
that.
rent bill? That
And
type
you've
of
got
thing.
monthlies as well. Look at your monthlies and of your outgoings. Although you can't necessarily cut all that back, it's going to make a difference. But just knowing that you've got
It's a
your
stock.
wages
yeah.
are coming out on this day, you've got whatever your cars that you're paying for are coming out on that day, and so you know exactly. Don't get, you think you've got a plan running along, and then all of a sudden these bills come in that you weren't expecting because you've just not got your eye on the ball with it. So just getting a clear picture of what's going out on a weekly, monthly basis. And then another thing, your invoices. It's easy to, these invoices that are not worth a lot of money, 250 quid, whatever, but there's like 15 of them outstanding. So keeping an eye on what's due from your customers, and having a push on getting these invoices paid. You might have some large outstanding invoices where you could phone up these people and just say, look, if you could get this over to me now, we could knock so much off it to get your cash flow going. Because your business is not, it's not, nobody's saying you've got a bad business because you've hit problems with cash flow. Cash flow will get anybody. So you just need to get your cash flow going again. I think speaking to all your suppliers, what you actually got outstanding with them, and having a chat with them, and they will help you if you just speak to them. But communication definitely is key. The other thing is, for me, it's just sales, like we're saying. You need to get work in, and I know it doesn't always work for people depending on what your business is. But in the construction industry, for example, you can just be very proactive and just go out and get some work in. It's much easier these days with social media. You can really get your voice out there, and you can be in touch with your clients that you've got already, everybody you've done work for. Let's get a phone call, an email out. Are you needing anything done? And it just generates some work on a quiet period, and all of that cash will help. And you've not got guys sitting around doing nothing that you're now going to have to pay wages for. So
Exactly.
there's other things, like there is like American Express card. These things are for business. You can spread costs over with that, but again, that is a debt that needs to be managed. You're not going to just start throwing everything.
And
on
even
that.
if you go get some finance, if you go loan some money, you need to repay it, but you need to know what you're in for and how you're going to repay it.
Speak to your
how long it's
accountant.
going to take.
Get a meeting with your accountant, sit with them, go through things, go and try and see where the priorities are. What's and if things are going wrong, your numbers will tell you a big picture if it's getting read properly. So you can sit with your accountant and get an idea of all that. So I think another thing that is important is just speaking to businesses. Just speak. We're here. If you need to speak to us,
definitely
get in touch. But it's amazing. I think if you reach out, people are very keen to sit with you because they'll have been through it. They've come at the other end. They'll have experience behind them of doing it. And then just what did they actually do step by step. And there'll be things there that we've not discussed here that they've done. And it's all just as much information that way you can gather as possible. And then you can make some informed decisions about what's the best way forward for you. And you know, sometimes the best way forward might not be to go and get yourself into even more debt, and then it's just spiraling out of control, and you know the business is done. So yeah, that was my take on it.
Chris, that's the longest you've ever spoken
Yeah,
anyway.
that's the first time I've got a word in though. I used to have rapid.
So Michael has just summarised it all for us.
Yeah.
I know. I think when you're a sole trader, a little bit different. I think we're talking more with businesses that have maybe got a few employees. When you're on your own, it is all down to you, and it is even in a bigger company, to be honest. But I think you'll see everything a lot clearer when it's just yourself. So what I'm trying to say is, if you're just working on your own, it's actually better because you can get things done a lot quicker, more efficiently, more effectively. When you're in a bigger company, it's a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Not impossible, it's just a little bit harder because you're spinning a lot of plates and
Takes
different
a little bit more
personalities. Yeah, it takes a little bit more time. But use the people around you as doing a job. Just make sure they're doing a particular job well and get it done. And see, this is where when the chips are falling, you see who's there to help you along the way. And just basically what you said as well, don't be frightened about asking for help. Something is quite nice with that vulnerability because we can all be vulnerable, but we all seem to hide it through bravado, whatever you want to call it. But nothing better than just saying, listen, I wonder if you can help me. I'm kind of struggling here. Most people you ever speak to will actually go, they'll drop what they're doing and go, oh, what's going on?
They'll generally want to help you.
Yeah. Of course they will.
They might not be able to give you money, but they will give you time, and they'll give you advice, and they'll give you helpful hints that's worked for them.
And this is back to what we started this for. Initially from yourself, the idea set for you, Michael. We generally want to help. We've walked that path, and we still are from time to time walking that path, that journey. So, we've got a bit of experience, and we're just sharing our story. And what we want you to help us out with is subscribing and liking, sharing the page, because you will, in theory, help somebody else by doing that.
Exactly.
So
on that note,
this is your world. Shape it.
Or someone else will.
Oh, that's
Love it.
Was that good? Yeah.